January 27th, 2025. The time now is 6 p.m. and I will call to order this regular meeting of the Town of Mead Board of Trustees. In accordance with the town's remote participation and remote meeting policy adopted by the Board of Trustees on March 13th, 2023 by resolution number 21-R-2023, remote participation will be allowed. The meeting link has been provided on the town's website and designated to post place 24 hours prior to this meeting. I'd like to remind everyone present, both in person and virtually, of the town's general guidelines for public comment at open meetings and public hearings. The guidelines are available online and on the entry table. There are 2 public comment opportunities on the agenda for persons in attendance at Town Hall to address the board. The first is limited to items on the agenda. The second public comment opportunity allows any subject, whether it is on the agenda or not, to be addressed. In addition, public comment will also be accepted during tonight's public hearing, item number 10. Individuals who will be called up in the order in which they have signed in at the entry table. Mary, roll call, please.
Mayor Whitlow.
Here.
Mayor Pro Tem Harris.
Here.
Trustee Adams.
Here.
Trustee Babcock.
Here.
Trustee Crane.
Here.
Trustee Hagan.
Here.
Trustee Schranz.
Here.
Mayor Whitlow, today is Monday, January 27th, 2025, and you do have a quorum.
Thank you very much, Mary. Please join me in a moment of silence for those who are battling cancer. Thank you very much for your time. Please join me in a pledge of allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you very much for your time. Review and approve agenda is next. Are there any changes to the agenda this evening?
Yes, Madam Mayor. Oh, sorry. I would like to have 9D pulled out of the consent agenda, please.
Okay, thank you very much, sir. Where will be there are changes to, may I have a motion to approve the agenda?
Wait.
Okay, sorry.
Okay.
Okay.
I'd like to add an agenda item, right after B on informational items. Yeah, see,
And this will be informational items from a staff member?
I'm sorry.
This will be an informational item for a staff member?
It's informational item for everybody.
From a staff member?
No, not. for
Oh,
you.
okay, okay. Did you want to put it there or in the town trustees area?
I think it's probably best here.
Okay, so between 6 and 7, not an informational item, correct?
Yeah, right.
Okay.
Right.
All right.
Thank you.
With that, may I have a motion to approve the agenda as amended?
I will motion to approve the agenda as amended.
Second.
Is there a second, Trustee Babcock?
Oh, I think we both are.
Second.
Thank you. Roll call, please, Mary.
Trustee Babcock.
Yes.
Trustee Crane.
Yes.
Trustee Adams.
Yes.
Trustee Schranz.
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem Harris.
Yes.
Trustee Hagan.
Yes.
Mayor Whitlow.
Yes. Thank you very much. We've had an agenda tonight. Next is our staff report. Ma'am, you have the floor.
Thank you, Mayor, trustees. You have my report. A couple of things I'd like to add. First of all, a big shout out to our public works crews for great snow removal. They worked all Martin Luther King Day, and then this weekend, of course, it snowed all day Saturday. So I just really want to thank them, for while the rest of us are watching football, they're out there fighting snow. So really, really appreciate our crews. Maggie's Restaurant got the green light from us, worked with our staff and our building department. So that's exciting. We are meeting with Comcast this Thursday to discuss hooking up this building to Comcast. Remember when we did our franchise with them? One thing they promised us was free internet connection to town hall. So we're excited to have that. And then finally, if you've seen the doodle poll for the retreat, please weigh in. Right now, it's looking like it's going to be July 21st. The 7th didn't work for a lot of people, but right now the 21st seems to work for everybody who's responded. So if you get a chance, just reply to that. And that's all I have.
Thank you, Helen. Any questions or comments for Helen? All right, thank you very much. Okay, we'll move on to our informational item. The first one is our communication department update by our communications director, Laura Nelson. Ma'am, you have the floor.
Thank you. I'm here to give you a snapshot of the community engagement department. So essentially, community engagement is 3 different divisions. We have recreation events, communication, and then economic development, all under that umbrella. Our current staffing is Caitlin Newbanks. Many of you may have seen her out at recreation and events. She's our recreation coordinator too. JC is our event and media specialist. Hers is a hybrid position where half of her job is handling events, and then the other part is assisting with social media, websites, that kind of thing. And then we currently have 6 part-time employees who are recreation assistants, and they help the department in all things recreation, events, communication related. And handle a lot of our event setup, our prep work for recreation, assisting with making ball bags, things like that. We currently have a vacancy for our business and marketing specialists. This is primarily for economic development. We also utilize a consultant, Slate Communications, so we work closely with them on special projects related to town needs. And then with the building of our community center, we'll be looking at additional staffing to make sure that's up and running, primarily the front desk area. So under recreation, we host a variety of programs and athletics for youth, adult, and older actives, older adults. So athletics, we have, anywhere from soccer, volleyball. We're adding softball this year. Programs, we've done things like Crafty Critters, Girls on the Run, Miles of Smiles. We also host a variety of camps, typically in the summer, which have been sports or STEM related. This year we are adding one for spring break. We do various trips, primarily with adults. And you should definitely take a look at our webpage. We have a lot of trips planned for this year. We're partnering with some other organizations so we can look at opportunities to go out of state and South Dakota, those kind of things. And we've added some casino trips as well. The recreation division also handles parks and facility rentals. So when folks want to rent a shelter or a park, they go through our recreation software to do that. And we assist them with any special needs that they may have. And this division also handles our employee wellness and recognition program. So under events, and this would be primarily JC with me helping as needed. It's community events, so town-sponsored events, the events that the town hosts, like the Egg Hunt, Community Day, National Night Out. We also handle special events, and so that's it's an application process for folks that want to have an event, a community event open to the public on town property. So if an individual or an organization wanted to host an event at Founders or Ames, they would go through our department, fill out the application, and we would work with them to figure out logistics, trash, restrooms, road closures, all that stuff. And we collaborate with other departments to ensure that everybody is doing what they're supposed to be doing. We also help with partner events. So partner, by this I mean, we collaborate with the Mead Area Chamber of Commerce, the Mead Motorheads, school district, fire department for any events that they're wanting to do also on town property. We help with the Board of Trustees events. So the meet greet and eats, we handle the marketing and communications for that. And then we also do employee events. So we typically have an employee summer barbecue. And then we also have a holiday party that our department assists with. So under communications, it's a long list. We have 3 websites. We have the town website. We have Civic Rec, which has all of our recreation and events on there. That's where people can go to register events. They can look at all the events that we have, and they can reserve park and shelter rentals there. And then we also have our Built for Mead, which is our economic development website, specifically focused on mead businesses and advertising, marketing Mead as a good place for businesses, small businesses, large businesses, and those business success stories. So we have probably a dozen success stories on our Built for Mead website, which are local business owners talk about their business, why it's successful in Mead, and different entrepreneurial aspects of our demographic here and our location. Our department also handles social media for the town and the police department. So that's Facebook, Instagram, Nextdoor. And then we do a little graphic design on the side for our social media. We have our monthly newsletter, so the Mead Messenger. We do intermittent postcards to the residents, advertising events or special projects that are going on. We also draft press releases and we prepare media responses. So if there is an accident on I-25 and they contact the police department and myself, we formulate a response based on information. We draft and finalize the annual community report yearly. So this should be in the mail to residents hopefully by next week. But it is a snapshot of the town's budget, goals, and achievements for the last year. And then additional outreach as needed. So as projects come up that need engagement with the community, we support that, and we offer communication support to the board and other departments. Economic development. This is primarily started with our Built for Mead initiative and has extended into business events. So we assist businesses with if they're wanting to do a groundbreaking ceremony, a grand opening, ribbon cuttings. We also have LinkedIn social media for economic development. That is the town and also Built for Mead. So that's 2 different LinkedIn pages where we promote our economic development initiatives. And then this year we're focusing on business outreach and retention. And then community engagement has also been a part of some other special projects, for example, branding and marketing. We took the charge on EV chargers as economic development initiative. We've been in the mix with the community center since conception and all the engagement and outreach we did for that to our building over there that's looking really nice. We are working on policies, procedures, rules, and planning programs for the fall of 2025 once that opens. We've also taken the lead on wayfinding signage, and then web accessibility compliance which was a state law that went into effect last summer, and we have a pretty lengthy plan to get into compliance, and it's a year by year happy to answer any questions.
Thanks, Lorelai. Questions, comments? Anything? Go ahead.
I feel like I have to say y'all are doing a great job, so don't take this wrong. But with such a huge reduction in community events this summer, are we reducing staff at all? Since, I mean, I know that it's not going away and sometime it will come back after the construction, but is there going to be a reduction in staff because we don't have those multiple large scale events this summer?
So right now, we're not planning a reduction in staff. Those six part-time assistants help with recreation as well. And so we still will have recreation programs, baseball and soccer, or variety of camps that we're doing, as well as assisting with, passing out flyers.
So
and
they'll be
newsletters.
Utilized elsewhere.
They will be
Okay.
utilized
We'll keep them
elsewhere.
busy, in other words.
Yes.
Okay.
We also really, with the small amount of staff that we have and this large project over here, we want to make sure that everybody that's going to be in that building is well trained and well prepared. So we'll be focusing a lot of time and energy into making sure that all staff know how to operate that building.
I do want to bring up the what she mentioned about the events being canceled. The events that will be canceled will be 3 concerts and 2 movies.
That's correct.
That's only.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah,
Thank you.
it's our concerts and movies.
And the motorheads, right?
Yes, that is, that's correct.
I know.
So, so our community events that we are temporarily pausing for this summer are our concerts and movies. And that is primarily because of the road closures and impacts to the folks that live around this park or travel through downtown to get to school or elsewhere. Adding our event road closures will hinder them a lot. And they struggled last year. I know my department fielded a lot of concerns, a lot of frustrations, a lot of anger that we were in fact closing more roads while we had the community center being built, while we had initial construction work being done at Third and Walker. So that is really the primary reason on that. The Mead Motorheads, they've been a great partner. Something that we've been talking about them, though, for the last 2 years is they are quickly expanding. I know they're up to like 125 cars. That was last year. And we had to move road closures that weren't planned. And so something that we had been talking about them with was alternative locations, because eventually they were going to have to restrict their participants or expand elsewhere, because there's only so many cars you can fit around the park logistically. So we did contact them right away. We offered assistance to find an alternative location. And they said that they already had something in the books and we're working on it, but would let us know if they needed assistance, and we will be happy to help.
Any other questions for Lorelai? All right. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
All right. We'll move on to our opens records policy, and this will be presented by our Deputy Town Clerk, Marisol Harmon.
Good evening, Mayor and Trustees. In tonight's agenda, you will find a resolution to adopt the Town of Mead Public Record Request Policy. I will be presenting an overview of this policy. Thank you. In 1969, CORA, Colorado Open Records Act, was established. This act allows for transparency, accessibility, and accountability. The act facilitates open government by requesting that all public records must be open for inspection at reasonable times unless specifically prevented by the law. Now, what is a record? A record covers all writing made maintained and kept by a government agency for the use in the exercise of government functions or receipt and expenditures of public funds. Writing can include books, paper, emails, recording, or other documentary materials. Made, maintained, and kept encompass all department agencies, divisions, committees, and districts. This includes the Board of Trustees and Planning Commission, among others. However, there are limitations and exceptions to the Act. Some of these limits can include criminal records, records that, if released, would be contrary to the state or federal law, would be in violation of a court order, or contrary to the public interest. Other records that could be exempt include medical or psychological information, personnel files, or privileged communications with legal counsel. A full overview of our limitations and exceptions have been thoroughly listed in the proposed policy update. It is important to note that although there is some limitations and exceptions, there is a general presumption in favor of public access for government documents. Now, what are the rules when requesting records? The request must be submitted by email or through our online form that can be found on our town's website. Responses can be expected within 3 days unless extenuating circumstances exist. If they do, the requester can expect communication with a general timeline. The volume of the request can also impact the length of time before a response is received, and at times, a deposit of the estimated fees must be paid upfront. No charges will be incurred without prior notice to the requester. Now, per the Act, the first hour of search and retrieval time is at no charge. Additional time will incur a charge of $41.37 an hour. This rate is set by the state and can only be updated every 5 years. The charge increased last July, so today's update would allow the town to match state law and would remain in effect until 2029, when the law would be up for review. Typically, documents are released digitally. However, printed copies do assess a charge of 25 cents per page. Now, a quick recap of our record requests received in 2024. The town received 93 CORA requests, which equates to about 1 to 2 per week. Half of these requests were billing related. Other type of requests included contracts, elections, court docket, staff information. And in 2024, 9 out of the 93 requests received incurred a charge for the search and retrieval. The remaining 84 requests were processed within the 1 hour period and were free per the Act. We also maintain and are constantly keeping up to date with many of our public records to make them readily available online. These documents include our agendas, our packets, our resolution, ordinances, and many others, and can be found on the town's web portal. And here's what that looks like and the link for that. This concludes my overview of the Town of Mead Public Record Request Policy. You will have an opportunity later today to vote on this policy. Thank you.
Thank you, Marisol. I'm going to open it up for questions or comments. Trustee Schranz?
Marisol, I have a question. You made a comment about 3-day response time. What does response time mean? Is that responding to the request or actually fulfilling the request?
Trustee Schranz, I'm going to defer my questions to Mary, okay? Thank you.
So in general, the response time, it doesn't include the date that the request was received. So that's day 0. And then you got day 1, 2, 3. Most requests are to be responded to within 3 days. If you can provide records within 3 days, we provide them within 3 days. If not, we respond to the requester and give them an estimate of any extenuating circumstances and when their request would be ready. We can only request an additional 7 days, so up to 10 days potential.
Thank you.
Any other questions?
Time to bring up.
Sure, that's fine.
The reason I had pulled this one out of the consent agenda is after reading through this, especially in section 4 under limitations, exemptions, and public records request, I am not comfortable with the way things are stated in here. I did try to go on our website to find our current policy on this, and I could not find it at the time. Maybe I was looking in the wrong place, but there were a lot of things that were missing. But then I saw that you guys are taking a lot of stuff out that is backdated. My ask is for this board to review the current ask and then also get a copy of what is policy right now with highlighted in red what the changes are so that we can actually totally understand what is being asked here. I have concerns, but I wanted to bring that before the board and see where you guys are.
Certainly. If I can just do a brief response. The public records, open records request policy of the town of Mead that was previously written in 2014. And again, you are correct. It may have been taken off of our website as part of this accessibility documents coming down. It has always been on the open records webpage. But I can certainly check for you. That policy was actually word for word out of the statute from 2014. And the statutes have changed a little in the last couple of years. And it didn't actually have like what it means or directions of how to do things, right? So it didn't have apply on with a form online or on our website. So we tried to make a policy that was more user-friendly, if you will, but also had the legal jargon in it. So it was, I worked very closely with Marcus's law firm to write this. We reviewed other policies by other departments, but it was not a red line change of our policy at all because our policy we didn't feel was appropriate.
Could we get like a major or like a summary of the major changes? Does it now cost more to get things compared to our previous, other than the updated rate? per
Yeah, so
hour?
the only cost difference is that it was 33.58 per hour. That rate is again set by the state. It's updated every 5 years. It was updated to 41.37 on July 1st, 2024. We have not been charging that rate because we had to update our policy before we could start charging that rate. So there's no rate changes. Again, there's just a little bit of clarification because the legislation in the last couple of years have said if a requester requests documents in an electronically searchable format, you'll provide them in an electronically searchable format. So we're just trying to match some of that stuff. Email's a lot bigger and now than it was in 2014. So it was just to clarify some of those things.
It doesn't make the process more onerous to the applicant or the requester?
No,
No.
the process is exactly the same.
Trustee Babcock.
So the changes that we're making in this are because of the changes that are legislative. So,
Correct.
I mean, we're not doing something outside of what was legislative, correct?
That's correct.
Like, we're not just changing them to change them because we're sick of the records.
No, and we are
requests.
following state law
Okay,
in complying with records requests. We have no intent of making any changes to how we respond to them or when we respond to them
okay.
or the timeline in response.
So one kind of, you said the 33 whatever changed to 41, but we haven't been charging it because it's not in our code. That 25 cents per page, is that set by legislator or is that just what we're charging?
That's also in
That's in the statute. right?
Okay.
Yeah.
But that's been the same.
Forever. Okay, okay.
Mhm.
Thank you.
Any other questions? All right. Thank you, Marisol, for presenting tonight. We appreciate it. All right, move on to trustee Schrantz and his additional item for tonight.
We keeping that in consent agenda or we postponing it?
No, the agenda has been set. The agenda has been set. We will vote separately on 90.
Okay.
Okay,
Thanks.
you're welcome.
Thank you. In 2016, I had the honor of being Mayor Pro Tem of the Board of the Trustees at the time. However, my last 2 years were not a pleasant experience. I had to deal with a situation that involved accusations and allegations towards town personnel. The whole issue absorbed almost a year's worth of time, resulting in long board meetings, special meetings, executive sessions. It tarnished the reputations of many of the board trustees as well as causing undue turmoil throughout the community. It was all perpetrated by misinformation, lies, and spineless lawyers. I will not do that again. At the last board meeting in January 13th, Mr. Carl Ford, a former employee, and Mr. Don Smith, a citizen, stood in front of this board and made some very serious accusations and allegations regarding some town personnel. Mr. Ford indicated that he had documentary evidence of specific wrongdoing by town personnel. I have not seen, nor do I want to see this evidence. Instead, I am putting forward a motion. I move that the board direct the town attorney to immediately engage a qualified, unbiased third-party investigator to investigate these serious allegations, determine if any wrongdoing has occurred. Since the mayor, the town manager, and the town clerk have been implicated, I further move that Mayor Pro Tem Harris be assigned to work with the attorney to ensure that this investigation is completed in a timely manner. At completion, the investigator will present their findings to the board and make appropriate suggestions as how to move forward.
I'll second that.
May I ask the attorney for input?
Yeah, Mayor, and Board of Trustees, my understanding of what was alleged at the last meeting involved alleged criminal misconduct, and that is something that I, as the town attorney, quite frankly, don't have jurisdiction over in order to open that sort of investigation. That is something that would fall within the purview of the Weld County DA's office. So if those parties that made those allegations want to take it up with the DA, I would instruct them to do that.
I'm not understanding any of that. That doesn't make a damn bit of sense to me.
Well, why not? What about the Colorado Secretary of State? Why not file a complaint with them? They have the resources
We have the resources.
to investigate that as well. Like, but
I wasn't there. I did watch it. My understanding after seeking guidance as well, though, is all the allegations were about moving election signs. He had 30 days from that. He can't bring that up on January 13th when it happened in September, October, November sometime. He absolutely could have brought it up then, but what he is alleging is not even something that is investigatable. I don't know if I just made up a word at this point in time. And also really, we're going to do this, a disgruntled ex-employee. We're going to walk through we can't do anything about it, but like Marcus said, he needs to go to the appropriate people.
Yeah.
If these are criminal things, he needs to go to the right people, because that is not us, Mr. Strands. That is not us.
Let me cut this off a little bit right here, because number one, bringing this up as an informational item, I'm not sure that's correct, because we typically don't vote on any sort of informational item, number one. Number two, if you have a question about what was brought up at the last meeting and you have legal questions, then ask me outside of this meeting, right? And I'm happy to respond to you. And if I'm going to give legal advice to all of you, I'll do it in the context of an executive session where you can ask me legal questions. Like, I'm not even sure this is the proper forum for you to bring this up in.
I think everybody's misunderstanding what I'm trying to say. Okay, there were accusations made. There were people who were called liars. That's not a criminal offense. Okay, but I don't know if what the person heard was in fact true. I want an investigation to find out what was being said, who said it, and why. Okay, that's got nothing to do with criminal. It's got nothing to do with any of this other nonsense you people are throwing. Stop, I got the floor. Okay.
Well,
This happened
made a motion and it's been seconded.
That's
So
right.
I suppose the mayor could call for a vote on the
Well, she
question.
has to, since you have a second on it,
Okay.
right?
Well, let's do that and then we'll go on. Okay.
Bye.
Thank you.
This is gonna tell me a lot.
Friendly discussion?
Yes, he handed me a pamphlet of information, and that was supposed to be sent out to the rest of the board. Mary said she was going to scan it and send it to everybody so that could be shared, and I haven't seen that. So as part of that, it feels like we don't want to just ignore if there's been things happening that aren't up to snuff. I'm not saying alleged criminal, but I'm saying inappropriate. We need to know that.
That's
I
right.
mean, so I don't want to just dismiss it, but I understand what you're saying about no jurisdiction to do a criminal investigation, but I don't think that's what we're asking.
No, I'm not asking for a criminal investigation. I'm just trying to
Well,
find
then,
out.
then what I would suggest we do is, because I have seen the written document that was submitted, and that is what is alleging violation of certain state statutes, which I, as the town attorney, would not have jurisdiction to bring charges under those statutes. The jurisdiction would lie with the district attorney's office. I'm happy to review that document with you all in executive session and answer legal questions that you have related to that document. I think that would be the proper step and the proper way to handle this initially.
Let me add to that, because I'm not asking for charges. I'm not asking to go after anybody. I'm just asking to find out what was said and is it true? That's all I'm asking. If the investigation shows that the things that were said are true and there was wrongdoing, then charges may be filed. But prior to filing any charges, you have to investigate the situation. And that's what this motion is
And
asking.
I think what I'm saying is that that level of investigation, given what has been alleged, would be an investigation conducted by the district attorney's office.
Well, you're only talking about one portion of what was alleged. You're talking about the election wrongdoings, if you will. I'm talking about people who are calling other people liars, staff people, and nobody's protecting the staff. We don't stand up and push back on anything because we don't want to engage. Well, I don't want to sit here and have anybody accuse any of the staff or anybody of wrongdoing unless they can justify it. Period. That's
Trustee,
all I'm asking.
Trustee Strange, can we actually make a friendly amendment to your motion to either tonight go into executive session or put it on the next schedule so we can
Fine.
talk about this?
I'm not letting this go, but that's fine.
Okay.
We want to put it into an executive session. We'll put it into executive session.
Okay. David, will you like to do the friendly second amendment? Second?
Seconded?
Okay. Now I'm going to ask for a motion to go into executive session at some future point. And I will ask Mary for a roll call.
We had a motion on the floor, but now you want a motion for.
He amended, she.
amended it. That was a-
amended to ask for an executive session.
Sorry, Brooke. I'm sorry. I didn't. Sorry.
No,
I still
have.
It's okay. It's
I
okay.
think the motion is to instruct me to work with staff to schedule an executive session at a future meeting where we can review the written document that was submitted, and you guys can ask specific legal questions related to that document. Right?
So moved.
Yes, mine.
Debbie?
So moved.
Yes.
Okay.
Second?
Roll call, please.
Trustee Shranz,
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem Harris,
Yes.
Trustee Babcock,
Yes.
Trustee Adams,
Yes.
Trustee Crane,
Yes.
Trustee Hagan,
Yes.
Mayor Whitlow.
Yes. Thank you very much. Thank you for the discussion. Thank you, sir, for your input. All right, moving on to our proclamation tonight. It's Black History Month, February 2025. I have asked Trustee Hagan to please read the proclamation tonight. Sir?
This is a proclamation for Black History Month, February 2025. Whereas February is recognized as Black History Month, a time to honor the rich history, culture, and contributions of Black Americans who have shaped our nation through their resilience, achievements, and enduring spirit. And whereas the observance of Black history began in 1926 when scholar Carter G. Woodson introduced Negro History Week to bring attention to the significant role of Black Americans in U.S. history. And whereas during the 1960s, this week-long recognition expanded into Black History Month, intentionally aligning with the February birthdays of Frederick Douglass and Abraham Lincoln to highlight their impact on the fight for freedom and equality. And whereas in 1986, Congress passed Public Law 99-244, officially designating February as National Black Afro-American History Month and encouraging all Americans to honor this vital aspect of our nation's heritage. And whereas Black History Month celebrates the contribution of Black Americans throughout all periods of U.S. history, from those enslaved in the early 17th century to the leaders, innovators, and community builders of today. And whereas countries around the world have joined the United States in commemorating the influence of Black people on global history, culture, and progress. And whereas observing Black History Month provides a vital opportunity to deepen our understanding of history, reflect on the ongoing struggle for equality and justice, and celebrate the achievements of those who paved the way for a more inclusive society. And whereas we must honor the men and women whose sacrifices and unwavering dedication to civil rights, freedom, and equality continue to inspire generations and enrich American culture. Now, therefore, Colleen Whitlow, Mayor of the Town of Mead, Weld County, Colorado, does hereby proclaim February 2025 as Black History Month. She urges all residents of Mead to celebrate and draw inspiration from this rich legacy as we strive together toward equality, liberty, and opportunity for all. Given under her hand and seal of the Town of Mead, Colorado, on this 27th day of January 2025.
Thank you, Trustee Hagan. Is there a motion to approve the signing of this proclamation?
I move to approve the signing of the proclamation for Black History Month, February 2025.
Second.
Thank you. Roll call, please.
Trustee Schranz.
Yes.
Trustee Adams.
Yes.
Trustee Hagan.
Yes.
Trustee Babcock.
Yes.
Trustee Crane.
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem Harris.
Yes.
Mayor Whitlow.
Yes. Thank you very much. Motion carries. We'll move on to our first public comment of the evening. The board welcomes public comment at this time for any item on the agenda, except for public hearing item. If you wish to address the board about the public hearing, those comments will be taken during the agenda number 10. We will also have comments for items not on the agenda during the second public comment number 11. Please remember that public comment is not intended to be a question and answer session. The board will listen to your comments and take them into consideration. All comments should be directed to the Board of Trustees and not to a specific individual. If you are wishing to speak during this public comment, please adhere to the town's general guidelines. Please start by stating your full name and address for the record. Each speaker will have 3 minutes to address the Board of Trustees. If you are representing a group, you will have 5 minutes. We ask that all speakers and audience members treat one another with respect and dignity. Let's ensure we maintain a welcoming environment and avoid any actions that could be distracting. If there's anybody that is signed in to the entry table to be at this first public comment period, please join us at the podium. Okay, thank you very much. We'll move on to the consent agenda item. We will have items 9, A, B, C, E, F for this item. Is there a motion to approve the consent agenda, the amended consent agenda? Oh, Lord.
I move to approve the amended consent agenda.
I second.
Thank you very much. Roll call, please, Mary.
Trustee Hagan.
Yes.
Trustee Adams.
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem Harris.
Yes.
Trustee Schranz.
Yes.
Trustee Babcock.
Yes.
Trustee Crane.
Yes.
Mayor Whitlow.
Yes. Thank you very much for the consent agenda, staff. We appreciate your time. We will now move on to item number 9D, which is resolution number 8R 2020-25, a resolution of the Town of Mead, Colorado, adopting the Town of Mead Public Records Request Policy. Is there a motion to approve this resolution?
I move to approve resolution number 8-R-2025, a resolution of the Town of Mead, Colorado, adopting the Town of Mead Public Records Request Policy.
Is there a second?
Second.
Thank you. Roll call, please.
Trustee Babcock.
Yes.
Trustee Adams.
No.
Mayor Pro Tem Harris.
Yes.
Trustee Crane.
No.
Trustee Hagan.
No.
Trustee Schranz.
No.
Mayor Whitlow.
Yes. All right, it fails. And what would we like to do as a board going forward? So that we can get this public records policy moving. And I would suggest that we ask our attorney on how to proceed.
I think the board is asking for what are the major changes from the 2014 policy? So I'm happy to have special counsel in my office that worked closely with Mary over the past few months on this policy to put something together, and we'll just bring it back at a future agenda with that information in the packet. Is that kind of what?
Yeah, I was looking at what the changes were and how and what is affecting the current one that we are trying to adopt. So I just wanted to have those changes so that everybody had a chance to really go through that and ask questions.
Absolutely. We'll bring it back at the February 10th meeting with a memo that kind of summarizes the major changes between the current 2014 policy and what's proposed.
Okay, thank you.
Does that satisfy trustee
Yes.
Adams, trustee Strands? Jeremiah?
Yes.
Mr. Tracy Hagan?
Yep.
Trustee Brooke, do you have, okay. Okay, you have your lights on, so I'm just making sure I've got them all taken care of. Okay. So is that direction, Mary, that you would write down in the minutes? Okay, thank you very much. All right, we'll move on to our public hearing for the evening. Tonight's public hearing is a public hearing for proposed code amendments establishing development standards for natural medicine businesses. I will open this public hearing at 6:46. Jason Bradford, our Community Development Director, will present the staff report. And this will be an opportunity for the public to comment afterwards, and then we will ask trustees for questions or comments after that. Sir, you have the floor.
Thank you, Mayor. Thank you, trustees. Appreciate it. So I'm before you this evening for a proposed land use code amendment to establish regulations addressing natural medicine businesses. And before I get started, I want to thank Sylvia in Marcus's office and Marcus and his team for all their help on this. I really appreciate it. On November 8th of the year 2022, the voters of Colorado approved Proposition 122, access to natural psychedelic substances, and that proposition decriminalized personal possession, growing, sharing, and use of well, I'm not even going to try it. Natural psychedelic medicines. That proposition also required the state to enact certain enabling legislation. And that proposition prohibits local governments like the town of Mead from banning licensed facilities, services, and uses that are permitted by the measure, the proposition. In July of 2023, the state legislature subsequently passed Senate Bill 23290. And that Senate bill codifies and fleshed out some of the topics that were established by that Proposition 122. That Senate bill created a regulatory structure for facilities and businesses that are involved in natural medicine use, cultivation, manufacture, and testing. It requires the Department of Revenue to establish a natural medicine division to issue regulatory rulemaking with specific licensing requirements. That Senate bill also prohibits the location of natural medicine businesses within 1,000 feet of schools. And it also provided that local jurisdictions such as Mead could vary that distance. It also allows for local governments to impose time, place, and manner restrictions on natural medicine businesses that are not in conflict with the state statute. The State Department of Revenue, Division of Natural Medicine did issue regulations regarding natural medicine businesses, including some details about security requirements and licensing obligations. Town staff here has reviewed the state rulemaking to ensure our proposed regulations that I'm gonna describe to you tonight are consistent with those regulations. Okay, so now on to the town of Mead's proposed regulations surrounding that land use. Staff has prepared some proposed regulations that address time, place, and manner regulations for natural medicine businesses in Mead. And those proposed regulations are consistent with the needs of Mead, as well as the regulations, regulations from some of our peer communities, and also the state regulations and requirements. The proposed regulations established the proposed regulations include revisions to our existing section 16-3-40 use regulations, and established a new chapter, a new article, chapter 16, article 16, which is called Development Standards for Natural Medicine Businesses. And so I'll go through each of these various sections very briefly about what each of these sections is doing. And the first one is section 16-3-40, which is titled Use Regulations. That's an existing section of our code. And what we did is we established natural medicine businesses, a land use category, and we broke that land use into two categories. One is called healing centers, and then the other category is natural medicine businesses, anything other than healing centers. And then we propose that healing centers are permitted in the same zoning districts as counseling centers, which are allowed as a use by right in the following zone districts: downtown mixed use, highway commercial, general commercial, and light industrial. All other natural medicine businesses other than healing centers would be allowed as a use by right in light industrial zone district. And then for the article that was created to address these, this particular land use, chapter 16, article 16, called Development Standards for Natural Medicine Businesses. There's a section there for definitions, and this section of code establishes defines terms that are associated with natural medicine businesses. The next section, section 16-16-20, applicable code revisions. This section requires that natural medicine businesses will comply with all the applicable provisions of the Mead Municipal Code. That includes zoning district standards, dimensional standards, lighting, signage, and architecture standards. It also requires that natural medicine businesses obtain a business license prior to commencing operations. Section 16-16-30, zoning limitations, incorporates the applicable zoning district standards for this particular land use. And then section 16-16-40, specific use standards. This section identifies specific regulations that are associated with natural medicine businesses. And that includes the following topics. Security. This section requires that an applicant provide a security plan for the storage of natural medicine products, the installation of security bars on windows, security cameras covering all windows and doors, and a requirement to keep those security videos for a minimum of 60 days and provide those recordings to the police when requested. This section also addresses screening, storage, and waste disposal. And it requires that all windows and doors and entrances that are visible from the public realm would be screened. And that natural medicines would be stored within the principal building, and any disposal of any of those products would be secured. It also requires that any establishments that have this sort of land use would establish air filtration and ventilation plans to put in place to ensure that any odors or are not detectable beyond the property boundaries. Section 1650 deals with distance requirements, setbacks and things of that sort, and requires that natural medicine businesses would maintain that minimum 1,000-foot distance separation from not only schools, but childcare centers, preschools, residential child care facilities, and then all schools, elementary, middle, junior, or high schools. And then also this section requires that natural medicine businesses maintain a 1,000-foot separation from residential zone districts and parks, with the exception of healing centers, which again would be treated similar to a counseling center.
Can I ask you a quick question, Jason? So,
Please.
oh, I can't?
Should we wait till the end then? Okay, I'm almost done. I'm almost done. Section 1660 requires that natural medicine businesses will obtain all the required licenses from the state prior to operating in the town. And that is the end of my description of the proposed regulations. Staff did present an outline of these regulations to this board on our November 12th meeting of last year. Then we also, staff also presented these proposed regulations at the December 18th Planning Commission meeting. And Planning Commission made a recommendation of approval to the board. So in considering these proposed regulations that I've laid out for you, the Board of Trustees shall review and consider all amendments to the code in accordance with section 2-70-20, subparagraph 4. I've laid out some of those criteria not only in your staff report, but also here on this slide. But in order to make this more timely, what I'll say is I can go over any of these that you'd like. What staff found in the staff report that was presented to you is that this proposed amendment does meet 2 of those criteria. One of those criteria is to provide for changes in administrative practices as may be necessary to accommodate changing needs. Obviously, with the passage of these laws through the state, we needed to address those that allowed use. And then to accommodate innovations in land use and development practices that were not contemplated with the adoption of the code. So obviously, when the code was adopted, this particular land use was not something that was anticipated. only one of the review criteria needs to be met. Staff found that 2 of the review criteria have been met. And so staff believes that the proposed regulations satisfactorily meet all the applicable criteria as set forth in section 16-3-160 of the Mead Municipal Code, and request that the Board of Trustees approve the amendment by adopting the draft ordinance that was included in your packets. And that ends my presentation. Happy to answer any questions if you have any.
Thank you, Jason. I will turn the floor over to the public for comment on this proposed ordinance. Is there anyone here in the audience that would like to make a comment or ask questions? Please come to the podium and we ask that you state your name and address for the board. Seeing none. The trustees have comments or questions. I will start with Trustee Harris. Excuse me, Mayor Pro Tem Harris.
My question was really quick. So if, say, they established a place and they checked that there were no childcare facilities in the vicinity within the range, and they established their business, and then somebody moves into a house and establishes a childcare, do they get grandfathered, like, because they were there first?
Yes.
Okay, just checking on that. That was my only question.
Trustee Hagan and then Trustee Adams.
I'd just like a little clarification on what occurs at a wellness center versus a natural whatever center.
The healing center. Yeah.
Yeah.
It's like a counseling center. So if somebody
So there's
wants,
a professional that's actually administering the hallucinogenics at
yes.
one.
Yep.
Okay.
Somebody that's trained in that.
The other one's just selling it.
Yeah.
Okay.
Or manufacturing it or testing and things like
Okay.
that.
So they can manufacture it too. That's why the odor stuff. I was wondering where the odor came from. if
So
they're just-
remember, there's those 2 different land use categories. The one is a counseling center, which is just with somebody who comes in with a professional that's watching them and helping them to administer the medicine. All the other land uses would be just in the light industrial zone district. And that would be the manufacturing, the testing and all that kind of stuff. So very different uses.
in retail sale or no?
No,
Retail sale.
Oh,
Yeah.
okay.
You can only medicinally use it.
Trustee Hagan, did he answer all your
Yes.
questions? Trustee Adams and then Trustee Babcock.
Thank you.
So from the state, from what I'm, make sure I'm understanding this correctly, we cannot say no to having that in the town of Mead based upon the areas that it is allowed. But on a federal level, it is still against the law, is it not?
I think that's true, Trustee Adams, but I'm going to ask Marcus to help me with that, because I'm not positive of that.
I think that's accurate. I think it still remains a Schedule 1.
So how can the state dictate to our city that we have to have that if it's against federal law? Don't we have any opportunity to have our residents have a say on that? Kind of like the marijuana?
Nope, it's actually kind of the opposite of what the state legislature did with the marijuana. When they adopted marijuana regulations, they specifically gave the town the ability to opt out of that, and this is the town does not have the same ability to opt out of these
Okay.
regulations.
All right, thank you.
Trustee Babcock.
That Trustee Adams pretty much had my question, but I'm still wrestling it. So it's federally illegal, but the state of Colorado is dictating that we accept and allow, and this this public hearing and ordinance would put it on our books so we have a little bit control. Is that the basis? Wow, that really stinks.
One thing about it.
You can go first.
The only difference in what you said is that the voters voted on that. It's not a state mandated thing. So Proposition 122 votes. Okay, that's.
So if I'm, just a question. So if there's, say, a residential house in one of these zones and this company decides to come in there and buy that house and retrofit it with all the security and odor, everything that you described, that could be the facility right there. As long as it's within, away from the schools and childcare facilities and such. Can't be by residential or parks.
Has to be commercial.
But
100, no, maintain 1,000-foot distance separation from residential.
but my house is in the DMU, dual use. That's a residential. Correct? So if they bought the house next to me and retrofitted it with all that stuff, I could have drugs right next to me in my house, next to my property? Yes or no?
Well, so the healing center would be allowed wherever like a counseling center would be allowed.
And that has.
All of the other uses would have to be maintain that 1,000-foot separation.
So that doesn't, so is there drugs in those centers?
Not for sale and not for general.
I don't care if it's for sale or not. Are there drugs there?
Yes,
And it could be right next to my house.
yes.
That's seriously screwed up. Thank you.
Right.
Oh, wait.
France.
Oh, wait.
I was just going to tap on to what Trustee Crane was saying, that if these organizations want to build here or populate here, are they required to come through the board for approval? Or is it done all administratively?
Well, that would depend. If there was a site that was already zoned and platted and they wanted to build, and that would be a use by right, we would bring that site plan to the board for ratification like we do any site plan, but it wouldn't require a public hearing. If
I'm more interested in Trustee Crane's situation. Somebody's going to put one of these things next to his house. Does the board have an opportunity to review that and make, or is it just an automatic tough thing that just happens?
yeah, unfortunately, we're really limited on how we can restrict.
So
Well, we're limited and we're not. I mean, we're limited by state,
Yeah,
but we're also, as you're doing here, have an opportunity to decide where we can put these things. We can say DMUs aren't part of it,
yes.
right? It's a code issue.
I would ask Marcus to provide that legal advice, but my understanding is this use cannot be treated any differently. Well, again, I'm talking about the healing center, cannot be treated any differently than a counseling center.
Well, that's fine, but still,
Healing center.
we can as a town say that we're not going to allow either of those two in a DMU. We only in highway commercial, general commercial, and light industrial, is the only place you can put it.
Well, then we would have to change the code and remove counseling centers from those zoning districts as well.
Okay. Do we have a whole lot of those? Didn't think so.
Not sure.
But that is an option, I think, is that we can have an impact on the code. And Marcus, input?
You have to amend the code to prohibit all counseling centers.
Right.
Period from DMU. So the
Right.
question would be, typically we don't like code changes that will result in legal non-conforming use. Those just create administration problems down the road. So the question would be, how many counseling centers do we currently have operating within the town, or is there interest in that type of use? I mean, it's again, it's really, the impacts of this type of land use should be not that different from a typical medical type office. So if that's historically been permitted within DMU, then that's the argument why to include that. type of use. However, if there's no counseling centers currently operating, and the board legislatively decides to exclude that type of land use, it all points in the future from DMU, then that's the type of decision that that you could make through an amendment to the code.
So we're able to make that decision if necessary, but then to you, Mr. Crane, it's like having Dr. Herman's building right next to you. He's got drugs in there too, but you may not be necessarily opposed to Dr. Herman being there, right? Is that a fair example?
Right.
Yeah.
Trustee Babcock and then trustee Crane. Adams, did you have? Dave? Okay, and then trustee Hagan.
Okay.
Go ahead.
I have two questions, but one might not be appropriate right here. Mine is completely piggybacking on trustee Schran's. The DMU doesn't seem like an appropriate place for these. But clarify, and I read through this till I was backwards and upside down. And then again, a counseling center is what we're talking, like a licensed counselor that you talk therapy, go talk counseling center. And a healing center is where there's a licensed someone that can hand them the natural medicine, AKA mushroom, and they must consume it right there,
Yes.
or they go home with it.
They must consume it there and they're
So typically, when I go to a counseling center, they may give me anti-anxiety drugs, but I don't have to consume it there and trip there or chill out there. So I don't see how these are. One is not like the other. And that is really like, I can't wrap my head around this. I also have a very big deal with the state. Granted, it passed by a vote, which obviously can see which side of that vote I was on, but that we now have to go through all of this. But so that's a statement. My question then is, if we table this to, since it's a public hearing, or push it forward so we can get a little more of our heads wrapped around this. When do we have to have this done before somebody just comes in and we don't have this and we're even worse off? So yesterday.
I mean, the state, I mean, I'm not trying to be flippant.
Yeah.
Answer, but the state started accepting applications for licenses, I believe was it January 1 of this year? So this type of land use could apply for a state license, and the state could approve the license without. And they would look to the town to say, what are your time, place, manner restrictions currently in place? And we'd have to say, really nothing. They're currently under review.
So then back to the DMU thing. A DMU, if we take out a counseling center and the therapist cannot now be on Main Street, but neither can the healing center, which also, these are legislative terms, like this is what they're called, because these are really misleading in general and broad and wrong. Okay, so if we say no to counseling centers in the DMU, we have to, or if we say no to the healing centers, we have to say no to counseling centers. But if we don't have any.
Well, but and I think.
But it could get us in trouble later.
DMU is not just limited to downtown. DMU also.
It's
all
also.
the way to the highway along Welker. And there are some mixed use projects that are currently in the planning stages in DMU closer to the highway. And one could argue that a counseling center is definitely that type of land use that would fit the mixed use development. So.
Just again, one doesn't seem like the other, but also it feels like we're backed against the wall. So I don't know.
Make it easy.
No, no. So I guess I mean, even from and I was sitting in the audience for the informational, then your mind is going, wait a minute. And I mean, to each his own, but again, onto trustee Crane, I don't usually go into the counseling center and, take my chill pill there. But this one, they have the drugs and then you will be doing the drug there. It just seems.
But they are supervised and they can't
And,
leave.
and
for a
I'm,
certain
I mean,
amount of
I guess
time,
it's when
and
you're on really
there's
good drugs
no-
at the
you're taking it to
hospital.
them and then shoving them out the door.
You're right.
Trustee,
High on this stuff. I mean, I'm just saying.
Trustee Crane,
One question, would the town be able to gerrymander the district and shrink the DMU?
Oh.
Like change it so that half of the DMU, like where most people live, are now residential and it's not DMU anymore? Can the town do that? Rezone?
Yeah, I don't know how far the DMU goes back.
It's all of Old Town and it goes,
So all the way up
it's
to
it's
seven?
big. It's big.
The seventh is where it's divided between Western Meadows and the older town. Does the DMU go all the way up to seventh? Do you know?
Let's see. You know what?
I'm pretty sure it's all of Old Town.
I could bring a map of the downtown, or, you know, we could
Jason,
even,
why don't we just bring up the map?
yeah,
Can we just
Yeah.
vote the zone?
yeah. Let's see.
While they're bringing that up, I just would like to make one point. And I'm not sure if you can gerrymander the DMU, but maybe you have DMU 1, DMU 2, and maybe the one that goes along Welker would be different, but you will expect to see density in the DMU along Welker. And the one thing, and we've had this come up recently, where someone wanted to do a business that they weren't allowed in a certain business park. So if somebody were to do, I forget what the term is, but like a regular counselor that isn't giving people drugs, what Jason referred to that. Sometimes they set up that almost as a home use, like some people do hair styling in their house. So we'd have to reject that as a home use too. Do you see what I mean? There's a lot of home-based businesses, and I'm not sure if counseling starts out as a home-based business, but I'm just saying the conflict that you might put in the future where you preclude the ability to have a counselor imagine what Welker's going to be like when there's apartment complexes, and then probably you'd have a chiropractor and you could maybe want to have somebody have a counselor, so.
So I asked Marisol to bring up the zoning map, which you can see the areas zoned downtown are in sort of that deep red, almost a maroon color. And you can see Welker with the project that's known as Welker Farms zoned downtown. And then you can see sort of the historic downtown. And to the west, it looks like it goes to the alley there in.
All the way.
In this audience here, we have multiple people who live in this DMU.
Yes.
I mean, yep, and yep, and yep, and yep, and yep, like, that's kind of, wow,
GMU seems to become an issue.
okay,
Because of the, I mean, you've got the 1,000-foot thing. I don't know how that plays into this thing. You know, Mr. Crane has a house there. Do I have to abide by the 1,000-foot before I put anything next to his because he's residential?
Well, my understanding is we have to treat these as we would any counseling center, but maybe that's something that we can look further into to see if we can do a separation. For a healing center, I'm not sure that we can, but I could work with Sylvia and Marcus on that and figure that out.
I think the point is that although the state mandates a certain amount of stuff that we have to do, we do have some degree of control with the land use codes.
Right.
The only thing that we're prohibited from doing is not allowing it at all. Right, so.
Or establishing regulations that violate the enabling legislature.
Right. But we do have some level of.
We do.
control with the land use codes.
Trustee Adams, what's next? It's okay. Trustee Adams.
And this might be a question towards Marcus as well. So it seems a little bit of a slippery slope. So you've got this psychedelic things that they can do with these mushrooms and so forth. Is this an in for marijuana?
No. No,
They
Right
cannot,
now-
they
right
cannot
now the
consider
town-
that down the road as something that would be part of the healing center.
no, I mean, right now, the town clearly prohibits all forms of marijuana businesses.
Okay.
And this is a completely separate land use.
Okay, so there's no way they could get that under that classification.
Not unless and until the trustees, elect to allow that type of land use within Mead, or there's another election question in the future where the voters give the board direction to allow that type of land use, but
Okay.
um,
Okay. Thank you.
Trustee Hagan.
I think maybe it might be getting a little exaggerated on, if they're dosing them and they're gonna be out of there within a few hours, because the counselor's not gonna, sit there for a 3-day trip with them. They're only gonna give them a little bit and then they'll be leaving sober. They're not, it's not like they're gonna be tripping when the counselor kicks them out. It's not introducing something dangerous to a neighborhood, and I'm sure there's some limit on the amount of psychedelics they can store on site, maybe. I don't know, if it's just small administration of controlled dosing, they're not gonna have 30 pounds, it's not like
That's how busy they are.
so I mean it might not be that big of an impact any more than, say, people coming to visit a counselor that are depressed or whatever else. I know people that are microdosed right now, and it helps them with their alcoholism, it helps them with their other like anxiety things, and they're normal operating people now having had that. So I don't know that it's as big a scare as what it's kind of being portrayed as.
Just to kind of piggyback off of that, I'm not saying that I'm totally against shrooms because you've got PTSD from being in war, whatever you're diagnosed with. I'm just saying that having it right next to me is not what I want, because it kind of brings its own type of people with it. It's like back in the day when kids wanted beer, what'd they do? They hung outside the liquor store. Hey man, can you buy me a 6-pack? Here's $5. Couldn't that happen at one of these places? How?
They have to sit right there.
They cannot leave with it.
Well, you're supposed to leave at the liquor store with it in a brown bag too.
I never got that to work for me.
Not everything changes. And I'm just saying, bad things bring bad people. Even if it's a good thing for a good person, the other people are still going to follow.
Okay. Is there any further comments?
I'm sorry, I have more. From what you said, that microdosing and it does help. I am not against that. I am very much like, how do we make this so it's in appropriate places? And the DMU, I mean, maybe it is because we're such a small town, and I'm looking at 3-4 homeowners that are in our DMU going, well, we have a lot of residences in Old Town and it has a feel. And so, yes, is that it? Not that it should be not a thing, but so how do we protect our current residences with this? Is there any way that we can opt out of, we choose no? I mean, you can do it, to each his own, but also, it doesn't have to be, you can do a lot of drugs in the hospital too, and you're watched, but that also, I don't know. I don't know. I don't even, I guess at this point, know what I can't.
Yes. Yes.
I move to, and I need a little help here, Marcus, to postpone this. Can we postpone this, or are we am I too late?
You can continue
Can-
you can postpone or continue the public hearing if that's the motion that you want to put on
Okay,
the floor.
a date certain.
It would have to be to a date certain.
Just so I would like to move that we postpone this to a date certain, which I do want to let staff, because I think we're going to ask for miracles, but also maybe just to really help those of us who are struggling get our head around this, but also make sure we aren't doing something to get us in legal trouble in the future or now. So I would like to move to postpone or continue this public hearing for the proposed code amendments establishing development standards for natural medicine businesses, ordinance number 1072, to a date certain.
Oh, that you have to, that's what we need.
Okay, so
The date.
or February 24th are our next two meetings.
so Helen, I mean, is one.
The action. There's no action.
The action is, I think we obviously have questions maybe that didn't come up until now. Like when I was reading the packet, I had questions, but I didn't actually get as mind boggled as I did in this. So,
So action is more information.
okay,
Thank
so
you.
more information to be able to put this back on and vote on it. Do you think one meeting ahead is enough time to answer all of our confused little?
Well, I would ask Marcus and Jason how quickly you could address these questions.
Okay, yeah,
24th, do you think, Marcus?
I think at a minimum.
At a
Okay.
minimum,
Yeah.
24th.
okay.
Would there be any suggestion to ask for the questions ahead of time?
I would be more than happy to compose an email or get on the phone or an in-person meeting to try to put into words how I
So
would feel
maybe-
comfortable moving.
Maybe
forward.
we'll
Yeah.
establish a process of trying to make sure everybody gets their input into Marcus or Jason. or
Well,
Helen or-
I think what we, if it's possible then to work this into a schedule is maybe we have a future, work session scheduled for, 25 or 30 minutes
Okay,
ahead of an upcoming regular meeting where we can just make sure that we understand specifically what the questions are or the goals are. And once we have that input, then I think, so I would suggest maybe we even bump it out to like the first regular meeting in March.
okay,
And then that gives us some time to add this to a work session agenda and we can hear a
Perfect.
little bit more in terms of what the questions are.
okay.
And that just gives us some time, I think, to further analyze, whether we can bifurcate, the DMU zone district, or if there's any way to have two categories. I mean, we'd have to have a counseling center period, which would be one land use, or it'd be a counseling center with a, natural healing center type component. And that might, one might be allowed in DU and one, I mean, if we have some things we need to talk about.
Okay,
And also analyze what our, what parameters we're working in from a legal perspective.
so March 10th
No,
doesn't put,
hold
nope.
on a second. So I appreciate that, Counselor. But I would like to have the work session and then take that information and revise the regulations. So I don't see it on the same day. I think it would be more prudent to schedule that work session at that first March meeting. And then, either the second meeting in March or the first meeting in April, because.
Okay, so like our schedule doesn't allow for February work session. It's too.
Well,
soon.
I just already know.
Okay.
Next two board meetings are pretty well packed.
Okay,
'cause I
okay.
have some work sessions. We have Sam Light coming
Oh, okay,
and I don't want to, and I know we're going to have an executive session at one of those. So I just want to be cognizant
Nope,
of your
that's-
time and give this its due, because a good work session is going to be 45 minutes to an hour to discuss it. So
so a
if we
work
could,
session?
I would say, but you're going to postpone the actual hearing to either the second meeting in March or the first meeting in April. But that doesn't preclude us, does it, Marcus, to have a work session to
No.
discuss it? Okay.
Oh, so
Does that make sense?
Okay,
What I'm
So-
saying?
yes,
So I think maybe the best thing to do would be to, well, it's really up to the board. But
April
we could either
14.
we could either open and, continue the public hearing to the second meeting in March or the first meeting in April, which would be the 14th. And then if we get to that second meeting in March and we're not quite ready, we just open and continue it again to the next
Mhm,
meeting.
mhm.
So
I don't want
You
to
know,
kick
but
the
we
can
definitely
all the way
want-
down the road, but
Okay, so there is a motion on the floor. You need a second and we can discuss
You
it.
want me
have
to
more-
finish the motion?
Well,
Because I have to
I have
say
more
date certain.
discussion.
Okay, we can discuss it after if we were going to go into it. If we have a
Everybody
second.
else has been talking about it. So
She was in the middle of making
No,
a
I'm in the
motion.
middle of the, no, we are discussing the date certain. So let me do the motion, then we can totally discuss it.
yep,
That's what she's saying.
yep.
All right, so I move to continue this public hearing for the proposed code amendments establishing development standards for natural medicine businesses. Ordinance number 1072 to April 14th, 2025.
Is there a second?
Second.
Thank you. Now discussion. Trustee Hagan.
Wait, do we need to take a vote?
No,
No,
we
discuss.
discuss and then group. Then we'll do.
Got it.
from everything I'm hearing, nothing's really going to change in this resolution. It's only in the zoning, right? The
But that's
description
in
of,
it, that's in the ordinance.
well, this, whatever. Yes, we could leave that designation on there that, but then change the downtown part to a different description.
But then,
Then we could approve it as is. And then our meeting would be about how we
change it.
distinguish the downtown area from maybe some other more peripheral parts that are in the red, wherever that went. Just a suggestion. I thought you wanted to get this on record, and we can't really change anything other than that exact description of the zoning, right?
Well, if I'm understanding what you're suggesting, you're saying move forward with this, but then rezone all of a large swath of the downtown area to a different zone district.
Right.
I would have to defer to community development. I mean, I think there's probably a number of land uses within that DMU zone district that have been established that would not historically have been permitted within like a residential zone district, for example. So I think that comes with its own can of
We don't want
worms.
to put it on the books like this voting on this ordinance. Like we need to make it right and then put it on the books. That would mess up a lot.
Okay. Trustee Adams, then trustee Babcock.
Sorry.
All right.
Oh, I don't.
So I've got an ask. I don't know if it's feasible or not, but since we're kicking this into the second quarter, that's a significant amount of time for the year to pass by. Is there any way that if before we bring this back up on April 14th, if there are any applications that we would be notified? That would be in the zone that we are describing and talking about?
So I'm gonna let Marcus answer that. I don't know if we could apply the doctrine of pending doctrine. I'm not sure. If there are no applications that are currently that we're looking at, but if an application were to come in between now and this April deadline, would we be able to apply a pending doctrine?
Has the state had any sort of informational data that's been shared? I mean, are we notified if there's a state license that's about to be issued?
So the information that I have from the state on the licenses is the applications go directly to the state.
Right.
If one is going to be issued in Mead, for example, we would be notified so that we could look at our zoning, our time manner, and see if we have any restrictions against it. We have not been notified of any in the town of Mead at this time. And my understanding is there has been less than 5 applicants to the state as of last week. And again, that's for all over the state. So the likelihood of one of those being in Mead is probably pretty slim also. The locations that they're talking about that most of the interest is coming from is some of the mountain communities in Boulder.
Well, and that's even as of a couple of weeks ago, and this may not be still accurate, but even Fort Collins had 0 applications. So just, for what it's worth, I think, I know I don't have a crystal ball, but I think that delaying this, you're probably taking somewhat of a small risk. But to Jason's point, if there was an application that came in during the pendency of this continuance, I think we would probably try to work with the state to assert pending ordinance doctrine and say that these are the draft regulations we have, and we really want you to steer the applicant to this area.
Thank you, Marcus. Trustee Hagan. Oh, any other discussion? Lights off? All right, roll call, please.
Trustee Adams,
Yes.
trustee Crane,
Yes.
trustee Babcock,
Yes.
trustee Hagan,
Yes.
trustee Schranz,
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem Harris,
Yes.
Mayor Whitlow.
Yes. Thank you. Motion carries. Thank you for the discussion. Thank you, staff, for your input. Next is our second public comment of the evening. We have no further general business. We will follow the same guidelines previously stated. I will call on the individuals in order which they have signed in. Again, I ask all speakers and audience members to treat one another with respect and dignity. Mary, is there anyone signed up on the sheet?
No one has signed in, Mayor.
Okay. Is there anyone in the audience that would like to speak during this public comment period? Please come to the board. Please come to the podium and state your name and address for the record.
Don Smith, 325 Main Street. So I want to thank Trustee Schranz here for not dropping the ball on this whole situation. Obviously, a lot of people know I've been posting a lot of things, and I plan on continuing that. But I really appreciate that. This whole situation is not made up. Mary lied to me a couple of times.
Mr. Smith.
I can look where I want to look.
Mr. Smith,
I'm directing
please
the
address
board,
to
so
the Board of
conversation can go
Trustees.
where it's going.
Thank
I'm
you very
talking to
much.
the board. If my eyes go somewhere else, that is not under your control. Mary lied to me numerous times. I have witnesses for one of the times. So, you know, these things need to be investigated, because when you lie about things, you lie about other things. We need to find out what's going on around here. You yourself have not told me the truth numerous times. So I plan on keep posting. And I also hope that the new board members, I know the ones that I helped get elected are going to do something, but I hope the new board members also stand up for something. Everybody on that board is supposed to represent us, the residents. Management is supposed to answer to the board, not be in bed with the board. I plan on posting a lot of things I've heard over the last 3.5 years. I'm not letting anything go by. Little slips here and there that you've said yourself, Mayor. I plan on getting them all out there. So we're gonna just keep this going until we get to the bottom of things, because I'm not letting any of it go. But thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Smith. Is there anyone here else who would like to speak during the public comment period?
Jim Whitlow, 3804 Whitetail Court. Over the years, over the last year, we've been working with the town, the residents, the churches, everybody. We do a lot of fundraisers. One of the big things we do is help our police officers, and being a small business owner. By the way, I'm representing the Mead Chamber of Commerce right now. All right, so I get my 5 minutes. Might not take that long. So we've done several fundraisers. We plan on giving money to the schools, which are coming up at our annual conference, our annual meeting on the 13th of February. But tonight we wanted to present, and if Chief, if you would come up. So with me, I have Jay Stipe, Vice President, Ian, the president, myself, I'm the treasurer of the chamber. Like I said, we do a lot of events, and it's amazing working with the business owners, the town, you know, everybody is such a great thing. And I think to date, we have given Shield 616 a little over $8,000. And tonight, we'd like to add 1,700.
So.
Over there. You wanna go tell me? One up here. You spent a lot of hours with us.
Thank you, Chamber. Thank you, Chief. Thank you for all the officers that are keeping us safe 24/7. Is there anyone else that would like to speak during this public comment period? Again, thank you very much, everyone, for your time in the discussion. Next is our legislative update by our town attorney, Marcus Miscast. Sir, you have the floor.
I will try to be fairly short tonight, given that we're very early on in the legislative session. The 75th General Assembly convened on January 8th. So as of Wednesday this week, they will have only been in session for 3 weeks. I think one of the main issues that they're going to be dealing with this session is the budget shortfall. Apparently, there's about a $1 billion shortfall in the general fund. The reason for that is that the pandemic relief funds that really followed COVID-19 are kind of drying up, or last year was really the last year that a lot of those funds were available. Those funds enabled the state to invest in workforce development, education, and public health initiatives. So with that federal support no longer available, I think the legislature is going to be spending a lot of time trying to figure out how to absorb that shortfall into the general fund. So did want to point out that Democrats still hold a strong majority in the House, but they did lose 3 seats to Republicans in the November 2024 election. So they no longer have a supermajority in that chamber. For those of you interested, the breakdown is as follows. The House of Representatives in Colorado has 65 members. The Senate has 35. So right now, the breakdown in the Senate is the Dems have a 23-12 majority, and in the House, the Dems have a 43-22 majority. State senators are elected to 4-year terms. Members of the House of Representatives at the state level are elected to 2-year terms. Some of the main goals, I think, for the 2025 legislative session will include environmental policy. Something I read last week indicated that there's a pretty darn good chance that, as I'm sure you may have noticed already, that the Trump administration and the Republican-led Congress may try to roll back a lot of federal level or state level environmental regulations. So the state is expected to become more proactive in this area of environmental regulation. For example, the Colorado Department of Public Health and Environment has already proposed 8 bills at this point in order to strengthen certain environmental air and quality, water quality goals in the state. So I think that's a trend we'll continue to see. I think there'll be a lot of CDPHE bills that will be introduced. Also, I think housing and land use will continue to be a focus of this current Polis administration. So what I'd like to do is maybe just, as I'm sure the mayor knows, because she's very involved with the CML Policy Committee, there are a lot of bills that have already been introduced, even though we're only 3 weeks into it. I think there's, at last count, just under 200 pieces of legislation that have been introduced. CML, or the Colorado Municipal League, is tracking a number of those. I'm going to quickly highlight 5 bills that have been introduced this early in the session that CML is tracking. One is the electronic fence detection systems. So this bill would restrict a local government from imposing installation or operational requirements for electric fences. I know that that's something that Jason and Colin dealt with a couple of years ago. And that this bill, if it does move forward, would limit the local government's ability to regulate or prohibit electronic fence systems, or even require those systems to be permitted, if that permit requirement is any more onerous than what is imposed for any other type of security system. So that's obviously an example of a bill that's being run by a special interest group, right? The next one, House Bill 25-1031 is the law enforcement whistleblower protection legislation that establishes a civil cause of action for peace officers who face adverse employment actions after reporting or disclosing conduct they believe shows a danger to public health or safety or an alleged violation of law. I think CML, the lobbying team at CML, will be seeking to amend that legislation quite significantly to ensure that there remains a locally available kind of tailored process to address those types of concerns. Also, one of the proposed amendments would make sure that the peace officer has exhausted all other state and federal remedies, like, for example, EEOC claim, or go through those other processes before this type of protection would come into play. Number 3, there's a Voting Rights Act legislation, Senate Bill 25001. This would impose, it seeks to implement provisions of the Federal Voting Rights Act at the state level, grants individuals and organizations the right to file civil suits alleging voter suppression or discrimination, and expands the Attorney General's investigative powers. It would impose significant unfunded mandates. And there's some concern that CML has that this is being proposed, although there has been no widespread concern for decades in terms of how municipal elections are typically run. And obviously, there's a large portion of this proposed bill that would conflict with home rule authority in the state of Colorado. So we'll continue to monitor that one. Number 4, this is very interesting. I'm sure all of you have heard about NIMBYs, right? The acronym that stands for Not in My Backyard, right? Or my other favorite acronym from a land use perspective is a banana, right? Which is build absolutely nothing anywhere near anyone, right? So, but this piece of legislation is referred to as the YIGBY piece of legislation, which stands for Yes in God's Backyard. And this is a bill that would actually promote the development of residential units on any property that is owned by a faith-based organization or a church, or interestingly, school districts. So the CML is definitely following this piece of legislation. It was just introduced last week. The main problems that they've identified initially is that there's no size limit on the property, right? I mean, it would be one thing to say, it might make sense to have a school district say, we want to develop 1 acre of properties so we can have some affordable units for educators. But this doesn't have any size limit. So a school district that might own 40 acres of property with no school on it could all of a sudden have the right to develop residential units, kind of regardless of what the local jurisdiction's comprehensive plan might say or what the local zoning regulation might say. There's also a concern about right now in the legislation as introduced, there's no requirement that that entity maintain ownership of the property. So what happens if apartments are developed and then they sell it off, right? That's a big concern in the legislation. And finally, even though I think that the drafters of this bill may have had affordability as a goal, there's no language whatsoever in this proposed piece of legislation that has any affordability requirements in it. So that's a concern. One other that I would like to quickly point out is I know you had the Open Records Act policy update before you tonight. There's a piece of legislation that proposes to make additional updates to the Colorado Open Records Act, including response time extensions. Right now, the default is 3 days for a response. This would change the default response time to 5 days. And it would also change the extenuating circumstance extension, which is currently 7 days. It would extend that to 10 days. Also, there are some very, I'll call it municipal friendly amendments that are proposed, in that requests that are made within 14 days may be treated as one kind of aggregated response for purposes of fee calculation. And custodians must allow for electronic payments for core requests. This is something that I think CML is supporting, and there may have been some chatter on the clerk listserv about this piece of legislation. Maybe it's still too early in the session. I don't know, but those are just a couple that CML is following. And like I said, we're very early in the session, so I'll continue to provide updates as we move through the approximate 4-month session. And I don't know, Mayor, in a minute, I'll turn it over to you. You might have a couple of high-level comments that you'd like to make, but I would also just like to let the trustees know that there is a legislative workshop that CML has scheduled for February 20th. In past years, as with this year, that's held at History, Colorado, which is right downtown, kind of adjacent to the Court of Appeals and Supreme Court building downtown. This year is going to be a little bit different. They're going to start a little bit earlier. And for those of you that are in attendance, they're going to actually take a kind of a behind the scenes tour of the Capitol building, and have it with an explanation from the lobbying team in terms of how the committees work and how, just generally how the legislative process works down there. So if any of you are interested, I would just ask you to reach out to Mary or Helen. And February 20th is something that, if you do have time available in your schedule, it might be something worthwhile, just to get a more of an insider's look in terms of what is happening with the 2025 session. But Mayor Whitlow, I'll turn it over to you. I don't know if you have anything you'd like to add from the public.
I just wanted to pass along that I did send out via for our town clerk our last public policy meeting results. And as soon as we send that notice to Mary, to all of you, things change daily down there. So I just want to let you know, it's a stamp in time. We're working really hard on making sure that we're not getting into unfunded mandates here at the local. So CML and a lot of people are working on that to make sure that we don't get the brunt of their mistakes. And then also, I just wanted to make sure you guys are receiving the State House reports. One just came out today, and there's actual, it's a great opportunity for you go to look at what's happening daily, and it's updated every morning. It's the box scores, support and opposed bills. So you can go on that state report and you can go and look at what's happening every day, what they're doing to us. So that's what I wanted to bring up, because it's, in my area. Okay, questions for Marcus, comments? All right, thank you very much. Appreciate the time. All right, next is elected official reports. Any of the town trustees would like to speak this morning? Trustee Babcock.
Thank you. Couple of things. I want to say I've attended what's coming up on February 20th for the CML legislative, and it's really good information, and they're pretty good about making it understandable for the layperson, but really good way to understand all the things that are coming that could very much affect us. So that's a great thing if you have time to do it. Secondly, I want to say that I'm thankful for the citizens that have reached out. I've had some citizens reach out via phone and email, and I am so thankful, because I am always welcome, as I know all of the trustees up here, a chance to chat or talk about whatever issues are happening. But I also want to very much say, I may have missed the last meeting. I did watch it. I have followed up. I sought our legal counsel of just exactly where we are and where things are going. And I just want to say, I have worked and been honored to work with Mayor Whitlow and Helen and Mary, and they have my full support, because I work very closely with them and have for many years. And I want to just make that clear, that you all have my support, and you all are upstanding, wonderful additions to our community. And I'm thankful for what you do for us. Also, if anybody else has any issues, I am happy to address them with them, as I know every other board member is. But there's a lot of uproar and chatter and talk in private Facebook groups, and that we don't do that and we won't do it. And also when they're private groups, that kind of negates it. But so many aren't on social media. So I'm just willing to say that a few don't speak for the many. So
Anyone else? All right, I'll lead us out of here. I just want to let everybody know that I went to the Mayor's Leadership Academy and we did urban development. And I'll tell you what, we had to build a city from ground up, and not tell you what, Jason and your department do so much. So thank you. A whole day of urban development. That was good. We did have a tour of the Western Stockyards. I had never been in a bus and went all over through the many acres of that. And then the next day I went to the CML Mayor Summit, which is always a great way to make my job a little bit better and learn so much more. Tomorrow I get to meet one of the two representatives from the Flight 629 Memorial Committee. Do you remember that? Yes. They're going to come by and they're going to hand us a nice gesture. So keep them in your hearts and your souls. Coffee with the mayor is Saturday. And of course, we have our North I-25 Coalition with the great town manager. And I have another Leadership Academy coming up in Florence, Colorado. And that will be in February 6th through the 8th. And thank you for the kind words. And I will ask for a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
Roll call, please, Mary.
Trustee Shranz,
Yes.
trustee Adams,
Yes.
trustee Hagan,
Yes.
trustee Babcock.
Yep.
Trustee Crane,
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem Harris,
Yes.
Mayor Whitlow.
Yes. Thank you. January 27th, 2025, regular meeting of the Board of Trustees is now adjourned at 7:56. Thank you very much. Please drive home carefully, and thank you for enduring my cold tonight. Thank you.
Wasn't too bad.